Can you hear me? We good? Okay. Well, I know the clock on the wall doesn't say it, but by watch we got 5:30, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got everybody except Mr. Warren, looks like. So I'll go ahead and call to order this regular City Council meeting here of the Stephenville City Council on Tuesday, February 6, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. And welcome everyone. We're all present. Mr. Warren, please note his absence. And if we will please rise and we'll say the pledge to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
All right, at this time, I'll introduce Pastor Ed Didford, who's here tonight, Cornerstone Assembly of God, to give our invocation. So, Pastor Ed.
Heavenly Father, we bow our hearts this evening, and we say thank you for the rain that's fallen on our land. Thank you for these servants of the city of Stephenville that have come together to conduct business. I pray that the diversity that's reflected in this group will come together as a well-oiled machine tonight and serve the citizens of this community in a way that blesses each and every one in the generation that is to come. We pray for our community as a whole, that it might reflect the beauty of your love, give hope to many. We pray that there be a unifying effect from leaders that hold present offices to those that will be elected in the coming weeks and months. May this community find a rallying point to unify around, to be a blessing to many, and give a hope to future generations. We pray all this in Christ's name.
Amen. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move to the regular agenda items. First is citizens' general discussion. This is a time when any citizen can come forward and address the council. I ask you, if you're doing so, to please submit a form that we've got at the end of the table to our City Secretary, Stacy King, and I'll just see if anyone wishes to come forward at this time. Okay, are there, I saw individuals get up to get a piece of paper. Does that mean that you'd like to come? Because I'll give you a minute to do that. While we're waiting on that, all the council members can put their iPads up here on the counter just for the citizens to see. And just thank Stacy for her work, getting us into the digital world. Mr. Nix, if you want to put your flip phone up here, you're more than welcome to do that, just so you don't feel left out.
I'm equipped.
Yeah, that's good. All right.
We stay within our comfort zone.
That's right. That's good. That's good.
I am a firm believer in an old saying I heard in a movie one time: a man's got to know his limitations. And
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%.
You could have 10 kids.
that's right. Okay, Mr. Walker, if you just come forward and state your name and address for the record and,
Name's Jimmy Walker. I live in Stephenville, Texas, out on Horseshoe Bend. Reason why I'm here today is back in December, I had a situation develop with my daughter and presented it to the Stephenville Police Department. And after 2.5, 3 weeks of zero interaction initiated on their part, I decided to start composing some statistics of exactly what's taking place in the police department. I'm just gonna run through these real quick and let y'all come to your own conclusions. According to Chief King and Assistant Chief Halsey, depending on who you spoke to, Chief King said 7 child rapes, non-statutory, occurred in the city limits of Stephenville from December 10th to December 31st. That's 7 child rapes. Halsey stated there was 10. Break that down, that's 120 child rapes a year in the city limits of Stephenville. Since we're gonna discuss rape cases in the city limits went up 300% from 2016 to 2017. In turn, the cleared cases fell tremendously. Only 1 out of 6 rape cases was solved, or cleared, I should say, in the city limits alone. The CID department, their cases fell from 431 assigned to 343 assigned. The percentages of cleared also fell from 13.9 to 10.2%. In 2017, 1 case out of every 10 filed was cleared. 1 out of 10. In 2016, the same work, or a heavier workload was presented to CID, but they managed to clear 19.9%. So as our workload fell, so did our percentages of cleared cases. Other than what I was presented by Chief King was city council's preventing, budgetary wise, preventing y'all from hiring additional personnel. So I looked into the personnel. We're carrying the exact same amount of personnel as we did in 2016, but yet costs went through the roof as far as these personnel are costing us. To a tune of $250,000 worth of additional salaries went out just in patrol and the lower end staff has incurred.
Mr. Walker, you're gonna have 1 more minute.
According to the police department, there's only one investigator that handles crimes against persons. That is assaults, burglaries, thefts of a household, rapes, everything. 1 officer. How is 1 officer supposed to handle 350 to 500 cases a year? This is a serious situation that we need to address. According to personnel statistics, there's 17 patrol officers out there. There's 5 sergeants and 1 lieutenant, 1 chief, 1 administrative personnel. Just the upper management is pulling in $303,000 a year salary for 4 people. 4. The lower personnel, 23, is pulling in $1.2 million. Sound like to me somebody got a hell of a pay raise, but yet we didn't hire anybody else. We've incurred an additional $252,000 in the lower branch, and it went up 200-something thousand in the upper division. I think instead of spending $200,000 on 4 people and pay raises or what have you, we need to invest in other officers.
Okay, Mr. Walker, we'll have to ask you to wrap it up.
Absolutely. The statistics are out there. Do a little bit of research. I did, and I found all kinds of issues that concerns me. Just several issues. One, not one particular program designed for child trafficking, child protection, stranger danger, any of that is our police department engaged in. None.
All right, Mr. Walker, thank you. Okay, Mr. Nash?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I was reluctant to come here and speak in this forum as the elected district attorney for this district. But in anticipation, having seen and been provided with social media posts by a certain Johnny Titanium, who is also known as Johnny Walker, and having had conversations with Mr. Walker myself, in comparing those social media posts about what I said and knowing what I actually said, I thought it was incumbent upon me to come here and address the council regarding the statements which were just made, which are comparable to statements which have been presented on social media sites. First of all, the first statistic which was provided for you is a physical impossibility. We have not had 110 felony cases filed by the Stephenville Police Department in our office of any kind: burglary, DWI, sexual assault, murder. There are not 110 quote-unquote forced rapes of children committed in the city of Stephenville or in Erath County, period. It has not happened. Where these statistics come from, I do not know, but they are not factual statistics, and I'm quite confident they were not provided by the Stephenville Police Department, because first of all, there are certain terms of art in the legal field and in the criminal field, and the term forced rape is not a term that we use. So the credibility of attributing that to the chief or the assistant chief or anybody else in law enforcement is suspect. And since I only have 3 minutes, because I am speaking for myself as a citizen, I do want to, I'm not going to go tit for tat into these statistics and these numbers which Mr. Walker has compiled, which are suspect because they seem to have been cherry-picked and they do not sound accurate to me, because I sit in the chair of the felony prosecutor for this district, for this county, and the numbers that he describes are not reflected in the cases presented or prosecuted in this county. I will say this: our Stephenville Police Department is one of the finest departments in the state of Texas. And as your elected district attorney, I would not trade places as a felony prosecutor with any other prosecutor in the state of Texas. Our police department, both on the patrol level and at the criminal investigations level, performs second to none, and they give us cases that are prosecutable, they are winnable, and they are just. And I will conclude with this: the defamation that we just heard about the police department and its performance, its character, and its integrity is not supported in truth. What I see is a department that is dedicated to protecting children and adults and people of all races, colors, creeds, and every other characteristic in this community, and they do an excellent job of it. And I take personal offense as a citizen and as the district attorney of this county when I hear their efforts besmirched. We have outstanding patrol officers, we have outstanding investigators, and that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. Okay, anyone else wishing to come and speak before council? All right, if not, then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is to consider approval of applications for hotel occupancy tax funds.
Mayor, can I
So,
point out
Mr. Barnes?
statistics came from Ms. King?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you have 2 applications for hotel occupancy tax expenditure, one from the Tarleton Stampede Rodeo and one from the Stephenville Lions Spooktacular. First one is the request by Tarleton for $20,000. Historically, they've received $7,500. I believe there's somebody from Tarleton to speak on this tonight. Why don't we go ahead and hear from him? I have an email that was sent by Mark Aiken.
Yep.
Aiken.
Yep.
But why don't we go ahead and hear from you?
Okay, so Coach Aiken, good to see you tonight. Thanks for being here.
You bet, appreciate it. Like I said, my name's Mark Aiken, represent Tarleton Rodeo, head coach and director of rodeo activities. And I know that the funding process has changed as far as getting help to put on these type of, rodeos and so forth. And so I know one of the questions in the deal was about the increase that we asked from years past. And we've asked, for more money, obviously, like everybody else. Just so you know a little bit about us, the rodeo that we put on annually has been going on since 1965. And we do not have a budget line item to put on the rodeo from Tarleton, so it is all done with student fundraising. This year we have a membership of 109 members. So we have the largest team in the entire nation. And so we try to put on a good, a good venue for everybody to come to. And as everybody is aware that the Lone Star Arena, what it's going through right now, so any additional funding to help get that up to speed where we can put on the type of production that the city's proud of and Tarleton's proud of, any help is greatly appreciated on that end of it. So.
Any questions?
Mayor, I got a couple.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coach, talk to me about a couple things. Number one, in years past, I'm assuming we use hot money for advertising. Give me some examples on how we're using advertising. Where at, what type of advertising facility, if you don't mind.
Sure. We do anything from television, anywhere we can get on there. Most of it's done through newspaper, magazine articles, anything that we can promote any way possible through. We print off tickets. We take them all around and to offset that cost, we go around to all elementaries, 4th grade and under, anybody within the surrounding area, and distribute those. We're right at 3,500 students, I believe, on that we hand out tickets. And then we also, all the print for the, anybody that, we also sell ads for the programs, so we have those programs, that we put out there for coaches and parents.
And in previous years, is that 7,500 the entirety gone towards advertising?
Not completely, no, sir.
What-
The breakdown is hard because we have to raise over 70,000 just to put on the rodeo, so it might have went through advertising, or it goes in, just our general fund to where we can produce the rodeo.
But in your application here, your intention is for most of this money you're requesting this year to go towards advertising.
Right.
Now? How much do you anticipate? $20,000 is your advertising budget, you think, or?
As much, whatever we get, that's what we're gonna put out there, and, not to be false representative or anything like that, but that's what, I think it takes to do a good job to go put on the rodeo this size.
And last question I'll ask you, and I'll quit picking on you. You said in your application that you thought you would bring in 300 plus rooms, hotel rooms.
For sure.
What is that based upon?
Based upon just every rodeo, we've never had an open room here, and whenever I even have, a couple of years, we even had to go outside of here to do so. But there's never an open room anywhere in this town, to rent whenever we have this rodeo. And so if you're not booking in advance, you're not getting one.
Do y'all have somebody from your organization that kind of goes around and asks the hotels, hey, are the majority of the folks staying here associated with rodeo, or?
Yeah, and then we also put out, anybody, like we do a host hotel, deal, so we're responsible for 9 rooms for 4 nights, just with our people that we're bringing in, so that we're paying for that, plus, if it's trade-off, some of them may be a trade-off for some advertising and so forth. But then also you have 17 colleges and universities that come to town. It does happen to be the very last rodeo of the season, so then we're also dealing with grandparents and parents, and they all stay all the way through Sunday because our awards presentation are done at the end on Sunday, and that's for the entire Southwest region.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I did have a question.
Okay.
I thought I misread it, but I went back and read it while Brady was talking. You're not just using it for advertising, you're also using it for the rental, correct? Because it says on the application it will be used for the facility rental for the 3-day event and also advertising marketing. Am I misreading that?
And
or-
no, and I may have misread how you want it put in there, but we literally, just wrote all the things that we are responsible for paying, that we're responsible for paying for.
So this particular money isn't designated for any one thing? Or it is?
And we can't be, and that's what, I know y'all have an after deal.
This is a learning curve for all of
It
us.
is,
So
and
it's
it's
a learning
big
curve
on
for
me.
all of us.
Really, what we've done in the past is, I know what it costs to put the thing on and how we can get it all put together, and then we can itemize exactly the.
And what is the rental for that facility for 3 days?
Just depends, every year, to be honest with you, it's been different.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but usually, we're responsible for anywhere from 1,000 to 3,700. And it depends on how many hookups we use, how many stalls that we ask as coaches. And then, you know, they get all the stall rental, all the concession money and all that. So the only thing that we get from that facility is the gate money from actually spectating through the door.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
Mr. Mayor, okay.
Mark?
So in years past, you said you ask for whatever you can, you've gotten 7,500. Do you remember what you've asked for in past years?
Well, we never seen, anywhere from 10, 15,000, like, we're just going off of whatever we can get. When I came from Canyon, Texas, we got 17.5, at WT to put on our rodeo. And I'm doing it comparable, like, Frank Phillips College, I know Perryton gets 17.5, and, you have Cisco College, Ranger College, and those that have moved all the way to Sweetwater, because of the help that they're getting, because it's so expensive to go on these rodeos and there's nothing coming back. And so where I got the $20 figure, or $20,000 figure was strictly out of your manual.
Out of the book.
And so whenever I looked at how many rooms that we are filling up, with that many contestants, things come to town, that's where that figure came from.
Okay, so there's not a material difference between the production that you plan on this year versus last year and the year before that? There's
No,
no-
sir. I mean, I think we try to max out every year, it just doesn't matter where the funds are gonna happen.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, if there's no further questions, then I guess I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we allocate $7,500 in hot funds to the Tarleton Stampede Rodeo.
Second. Motion has been made to allocate $7,500 to the Tarleton Stampede Rodeo by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. Harrison. Any discussion?
Mayor, do we know what the balance in this op tax fund is at the present?
Mr. Barnes?
No, sir, this is out of this year's operating funds. I don't know what the balance is right now, but it's certainly positive.
By at least this much?
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, well, then that,
Do you know,
Just curious.
Monica, do you know?
Good to know.
yeah,
We'll have you an exact number in just a moment.
okay, well, if we're allocating funds for a specific use, I'd kinda like to know for sure that the money's there, and I suspect the coach would also.
Other discussion?
I certainly appreciate what you have to say. A valued event to the community, but several months ago, we looked at transitioning how we do our tourism and how we handle our hot funds. And I felt like at that time that we made a general consensus that we would uphold the grants that were already traditional to what we do. And therefore, that's why I do support the $7,500, but we'll see. We'll, before too long, we should have someone hired that will have different opinions and different guidance, and we'll see. But I'll tell you right now, honestly, $20,000 seems pretty rich for what we're doing, So, but anyway, I appreciate it. That's the reasoning for my judgment. You bet.
Any other discussion? All right, well, Coach Egan, let me tell you that I'm embarrassed for our community, and I want to personally apologize before we take this vote. This is the largest rodeo team in the nation and the cowboy capital of the world. You've told us tonight that smaller communities with smaller teams get $17,500, and we're apparently unwilling to support your $20,000 request, even though our application process says that if you're over 250 rooms guaranteed, that you're eligible for $20,000. And I think that's what you deserve, and I think it's what you've earned, and I think it's what we as a community ought to support. We have, and I wish Mr. Barnes had the number, and I'm also disappointed to hear that he just says a bunch, because we ought to have the number specifically, which might help inform our decision. Because the dollars that we're collecting in this account are in in the tens of thousands, if not over $100,000 that are in our account. So I would ask the council to consider that. 17 teams, every room booked in this city for multiple nights. And with no other basis than that's what we did before is Einstein's definition of insanity. So, do you have the number, Monica?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, based on the numbers that I was given as of December 31st, we have $249,494 revenues over expenditures for this year. We have a retained earnings of $161,046 and some change on both of them, which give us total revenue sources of $410,540.89.
So over $400,000. So if we're not willing to invest in the heart and soul of this community, I think we're taking the wrong step. But I will proceed to vote. Yes.
Of those revenues that you mentioned, is there anything obligated or referred to that we guarantee that we've continued in what we did last year? Does that offset any of that money, Monica, or did you figure that?
Those are the raw numbers.
That's just revenue. I
That's
understand, but
that's
we
correct.
had
We
verbal
have
obligation to do
obligations.
some things. I was just curious how much of that was obligated.
Correct. It is a relatively small expense. If you'll recall, we've been paying the Chamber of Commerce close to $250,000 a year. That $250,000 at this point has not been allocated. So we have a significant projection of revenues over expenditures at this point.
25% of that was allocated, remember we increased
We paid them for a quarter.
that first quarter.
Oh, that's correct.
Has been
That's
allocated,
correct.
but the rest of it is not.
So 67.5 of that $240,000 has been spent.
Allocated it where?
It was spent for the first quarter of our payment to the chamber.
December 31st.
Yes, ma'am, from October 1st to December 31st.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any other questions before we proceed to vote? Okay, all those, again, the motion is to provide $7,500 to the Tarleton Stampede Rodeo with hotel occupancy tax funds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. There's 3 noes, Clinton, Weldon, and Nix. Motion passes. So $7,500. The next item, Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council of Stephenville, the Lions Club has asked for $500 for their spooktacular. They anticipate 300 in attendance. Approximately 75 of those are expected to be from out of town or another county. They anticipate 40 hotel rooms with 1 night per participant. There's no block reserved. They have historically received since 2014 at least $500 per year.
Anyone here from the Lions Club? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the allocation of $500 to the Lions Club.
Motion by Mr. McClinton, seconded by was that Mr. Nix? Okay, to approve $500 for the Stephenville Lions Club Spectacular. Any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimous vote. The Planning and Zoning Commission portion of the meeting is canceled for tonight. Our public hearing is not necessary. I guess, according to Jeremy, the individual that was bringing that forward, requested that it be pulled from the agenda, so we've done so. So we'll not have the Planning and Commission portion, so we'll move to the committee reports. First, we've got the Charter Review Committee, Mr. Harrison.
Okay, Charter Review Committee met on Thursday, January 4th, 2018. That consisted of myself, Alan Nix, Carla Trussell, Jerry Warren, and then we have 2 members from the public, which are Milam Hefner and Richard Petronas. Essentially, we looked at the various items that we were wanting to deal with, and which would eventually come to ballot at some point. And I felt like that we had tremendous discussion, had really good discussion. We need to require another meeting that I believe that's coming up next week. Is that not correct, Mr. Barnes? For the charter review committee?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, all right. To do some final tweaks, but in the end, it had become evident that we have a very full ballot. There's a lot of ballot issues that are taking place within the county and the city, and school bonds and what have you, that we might be dealing with what we would call voter fatigue. And we're looking at the issue of trying to move what we're dealing with now on the November ballot. So if there are any questions. If not, that's in the
Okay, thank you very much. Personnel Committee, Mr. McClinton.
Mr. Mayor, Personnel Committee met 23 January. Mr. Savine, Ms. Zachary, myself were present. Mr. Nix was attending his mother in the hospital, could not be there. There was one item on the agenda for the meeting, and it was an introduction to the proposed employee handbook. A cursory examination of the handbook would indicate that unknown amount of man hours went into creating that publication, and the purpose of the meeting was to give a first read of it. Mr. Barnes went through the what he considered were the pertinent items, the specific changes that have been made, and trying to update. There were still, I think, some pending issues that needed to be cleaned out. It will come back to the Personnel Committee at a future date, and then hopefully will be forwarded on. But I just want to say, Mr. Barnes, you and staff, outstanding job.
Thank you.
In putting that together. One of the things that they did in that personnel handbook was they reformatted it to make it where future updates could happen at the snap of a finger because of the way they put the thing together, and I think that's very, very creative. So if you have something you'd like to add.
No, sir. Other than to recognize Jeremy Allen's part in this, and Cheryl Truss's part in this, and Karen Wilkerson. All 3 of those spent many hours, as I did, in the preparation of that manual. We're very proud of the resulting document, and we look forward to hopefully presenting it to council for their consideration at the March meeting.
Okay. Well done. Excellent work. Mr. Mayor, there was no action taken in the committee, so here ends the Personnel Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Community Services, Ms. Zachary.
Yes, the Community Services Committee met on January 23rd to discuss several items, the first of which was the use of the parkland dedication funds in conjunction with Keep Stephenville Beautiful for the renovation of Bill Johnson Park. And Jeremy, are there slides to show? I forgot to call and ask if we had any, or I'm sorry, Jesus, excuse me.
There's slides for.
To show, do we have a picture to show?
No, ma'am,
I didn't have it in my packet, but okay. Anyway, it's a complete renovation from one side to the other, and the committee discussed it and approved it to be forwarded unanimously for discussion at the council.
Okay, so Jesus, you want to go over any of the details, or we got any questions?
Yeah, this project has been in the works for about 2 years now in conjunction with Keep Stephenville Beautiful, and kind of went on the back burner last year, but it's kind of taken off this year. And so we've been working together with Keep Stephenville Beautiful and Mark about this renovation. What we're going to do in conjunction with them, they want to renovate completely this park. There's been several families that have moved into the neighborhood with smaller children, so this park is getting a lot more use now. And so they want to revamp that and start to create a model park so we're gonna add a playground to this park. We're also gonna do some concrete work, have some sidewalks. Also, we're gonna renovate the basketball court, we're gonna resurface that. There's gonna be some sitting areas with some stone quarries that they're gonna do. There's gonna be a really neat park, and I wish I would've, included the slides on here, but, it's a project that everybody's, excited about. I know Mark's excited about it. He's been out talking to, the neighborhood, but, what we're gonna do is we're gonna partner with them, and we're gonna do a 50-50 match, for the their funds and help, get that project off the ground. And, also what we're doing is we're taking the opportunity to relocate a playground that we're gonna replace next to our T-ball fields and basically refurbish that and move it over to Bill Johnson Park. And so that's giving us an opportunity to also not just do away with that playground. We're just gonna move it, refurbish it, and also give us that opportunity to, redo our playground by the T-ball field, so. All excited about it.
Okay, any questions?
I just will make a
Yeah.
comment, Jesus, well done on this. This is exactly what I think the city of Stephenville needs to be doing. We need to be creating these these public-private partnerships to do things like this in the city, and the design is outstanding, and Keep Stephenville Beautiful Bunch are out knocking on doors and getting private donations to cover this, and it's just, I think it's gonna be real exciting.
One of the directives that was given to me at the Community Services Committee was to, convey to the Keep Stephenville Beautiful committee that, to try to use local contractors and try to cut some of that cost back, and they're already get the road running with that, and they've already done a lot of work with that, so they're really involved with this, and, I think it's gonna be a good project for our community.
I had a comment. I'm real excited about this too, because I was good friends with Bill Johnson, so I'm real excited about it. I know that I recently found they're going to honor Janet Whitley with a memorial at that park, so that's a really nice thing they're doing there. Mr. Lovell and Brad Allen have both donated trees, so I want to say thank you to both those gentlemen for donating trees to that park, and I'm sure there's other donations that I'm not aware of. And they're going to attempt to finish this and showcase it at their garden tour in June, so I encourage everybody to come by and see the park.
One of the other things that we've done also is that we are partnering with Tarleton Roundup, and so we're gonna have a lot of volunteers that's gonna help us get this project done, along with some of the neighborhood people. And so that's the other component that's making this project exciting, is that we're getting community buy-in, that's what we want.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor, I think this is a good example of the use of some of the funding that has been contributed by developers through the years for our parks and our rec department, and this is an excellent example of a neighborhood park receiving the benefit of that and receiving the benefit of those funds specifically for that area, and I hope that we're looking at some other areas around town that we may not have a park in yet, but we might be able to add one in there with the cooperation of some of the property owners, et cetera, in that area.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This is the first step of many, I hope.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the parkland dedication funds to be used to renovate the Bill Johnson Park.
Second.
Okay, let me, before we finish the motion, would you put the dollar amount in the motion, please?
Yes, sir. I move that we utilize the parkland dedication funds not to exceed $50,000 to renovate Bill Johnson Park.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so a motion by Mr. McClinton to use up to $50,000 of parkland dedication funds for the renovation of Bill Johnson Park, seconded by Ms. Trussell. Any discussion? Not proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimous vote. Ms. Zachary?
Okay, the second item that we discussed that night was a land lease agreement with Prime Building Components to construct a hangar at the Stephenville Clark Regional Airport. There was a document that we requested a few changes in for the lease agreement, and then the committee unanimously recommended that we go forward with that. Did you have anything further to say on?
I was gonna
Because it's
say, that item's been pulled tonight
Oh, it
because,
has?
just some legal document, we're still trying to iron out the final details of that.
All right.
So it didn't come back in time.
Well then, Mr. Mayor, that concludes business.
Okay, great, thank you. And that will then remove item 4 from the committee reports, which was to consider airport land lease with prime building components. So that'll conclude the committee reports, which will move us now to Monica and the monthly budget report. Good evening.
Just to clarify on that hotel motel tax, even after, we paid, got the revenue for this year for what we budgeted and paid all the expenditures, we still, anticipate to have, if you add back in the ball field, about $146,000 in retained earnings at the end. And there was 228 of the undesignated funds of which this would have come out of.
Okay, thank you.
If that helps. For our monthly budget review, this is for the period ending December 31st. And once again, everything came out as I would expect or a little bit better. For our property taxes, we received $2.4 million in December, resulting in $189,000 increase over funds collected through December 31st of last year. The county collects about 46 to 52% of our property tax based on what we received last year. The last 4 years. So the amount collected this year is 55% of our budget, which looks a little promising now. I'm not sure if people just paid early and it'll dwindle off, but that's where we're at. The sales tax, we received $505,000 in sales tax in December, resulting in $98,000 or 6.81% over our target budget through December 31st. We received $24,000 or 1.61% more than last year. It's a slight uptick, but we'll take what we can get at this point. The target budget for operating revenue is $5.9 million. We received $7.2 million in revenue, resulting in $1.3 million of our budget. And of course, that's related to our property taxes, which are billed in October and due by January 31st. The target budget for our operating expenditures is $4.79 million. We expended $4.791 million, resulting in $1,374 over our budget. We did pay our insurance annually this year, so instead of paying in 25%, 4 times during the year. So because of that, we are really $329,000 under our target budget.
Okay.
The operating revenue received last year was $7 million as compared to the current year $7.2 million, resulting in $234,000 increase, and that's due to our property taxes and our sales taxes. And then the operating expenditures last year were $4.5 million as compared to the current year's $4.7 million, which is $235,000 increase, and that's largely due because we did pay our liability insurance annually instead of quarterly like we did the year before. And we did that to save a little bit of money. For our new programs, of course, the carpet was purchased for City Hall. The fire department purchased their forcible entry door simulator. The landfill purchased the fuel trailer, and $15,530 of the $875,000 budgeted for street improvements has been spent.
Okay. Questions for Monica?
Do you know what the little bit of money you saved was?
It was 2%, which was about $8,700.
Good.
Not a lot, but
Every bit,
that's
every
right.
bit counts.
Every bit counts, that's right. Any other questions for Monica? Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify on the hot tax so that I'm understanding what you're saying. We're talking $400,000 something, but this is this as of December 31st, or is this the budget that we're going to have for the whole year till October 31st
When we get to September 30th,
of this year?
yes, of this year, we had budgeted to have about $86,000 in reserve, but there was a $60,000 ball field, which we since decided, that we, can't legally do, so that would take it up to 146. And with that, we had revenues of 400 and expenditures of 400 budgeted. We had 228,000 and some change, I think it was, that was for the undesignated funds, which is where we were planning on paying for the tourism requests that would come to us.
But this budget or this money, we haven't actually set up a budget to spend it yet. We don't have,
It's
there's
just
nothing in there
lumped-
for the
it's
salary
lumped
for
in.
the
It's lumped
TVB
into-
person, there's nothing in there for any expenses and all of that.
Right now, it's all lumped into one line item, and as we get further in the process, you'll see a budget adjustment come to you, splitting out so much. of
As we,
the-
and, yeah, nor have we paid the city back for its efforts on behalf of this. Okay, thank you.
See, when I look at the hot tax, the way that I view this is that, you know, when we're dealing with grants and that type of thing, it would be essentially, something relatively close to what we were dealing with the chamber, because that's how we budgeted. They had a $240,000 budget, and I know that we're talking $400,000 and so forth, but, and I feel like it will come to that. I think that's what we're working to, but, that's essentially, that's what I'm looking at, is $240,000. So,
Because the $240,000 wasn't just, it was covering, computers, and it was covering lots of expenses as far as operations. That wasn't just what was budgeted for grants.
That the chamber. Yes,
It
that's
was
correct.
covering lots of
Yes,
expenses,
yes.
and we don't know what our exact expenses are going to be yet. So,
Well, Mr. Barnes did do a,
projected,
projected budget.
but we're in a transition period where we're not sure.
We'll know a whole lot more Thursday night. About what we can do, what we should be doing.
Thank you, Monica.
All right, so, any other questions for Monica? All right, thank you very much. So maybe the, council, as it gets more fidelity on the hot tax, there's no rule that says you can't come ask for money twice,
That's right, correct.
or 3 times. Especially if you're selling out the town for 4 nights in a row. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Stephenville Type B Economic Development Authority item, so Ashley?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Ashley Gearbacher. I'm with the Stephenville Economic Development Authority, and I'll be giving you your update this evening. Want to bring to light a few items that have been going on in our office over the last couple of weeks. Project Blue continues to progress in a positive way. An environmental study was required, and several of us all together met on this topic, and we're moving forward with that. It cost $6,000, and we were able to have the developer negotiate, and they're willing to pay for 50% of that. Everyone, city and everybody involved is working harmoniously to see this final phase to completion. As far as development goes, we've had several local property owners reach out to the CDOT office. We were happy to field those phone calls, take their confidential information, and pair that up with a developer. We made those connections about 10 days ago. I've stayed in contact with those, and we're eager to make that communication and assist both parties in any way we can. Also, in regards to following up, we have stayed in touch with Janie Howell of the Governor's Office. She was here for the Economic Development 101, and I look forward to continuing that relationship with her as we utilize her as a resource for our community. Business retention and expansion
Any questions for Ashley?
Well, I want to thank you for reaching out to the lady from Austin, because you emailed me and said you asked her to follow up on the tourism audit, and I think that's awesome that they did that for free and you reached out to her. Are you going to be the one going to the conference February 21st?
I sure will, yes,
Good,
ma'am.
thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Cook will follow, he's our board president, to present the incentive policy.
Okay,
and
great, thank you. Mr. Cook?
Council members, thank you for having us here today. You have, I think John sent you a copy of the policy. John is ill and was going to be here tonight to go over this, but he had to go through a medical procedure and he's not feeling very good at all. And so he couldn't attend tonight. So unfortunately, you have me. The memorandum that you received basically gave a very short, somewhat overview, but it contained the key elements, I think, of the changes to the incentive policy. And these were gone over a period of several months and finally came to a vote by the board. The key things are limiting the eligibility, frankly, to manufacturing, research, regional distribution, regional service, other industry, and as the primary or the wealth-producing type of company. The retail and regional entertainment tourism facilities were limited to $3 million in total investment. So that creates a separation defined with regard to wealth-producing industry. $3 million in 5 jobs over a period of time. A new facility coming in, it would be again, limited to manufacturing, research, regional service, or basic industry, would have a minimum requirement of $200,000 and 10 jobs in order to be considered. And the same goes for an expanded or modernized facility. I think was the way the words went with regard to 200,000 people. Then a cap of 700% overall in the payment that could be granted over the years. And it's 7% first year of the total investment. So those are the 4 key things I think that the change represented change in policy. And it was frankly, to concentrate on those things, if you're looking into retail and commercial development, concentrate on those things that are major impact. And that's one of the $3 million investment level. And nowadays, you can get to $3 million investment levels pretty quickly if you're in the construction business. With regard to manufacturing, the $200,000 deals more with those that are frankly smaller startup manufacturers, people who have a good idea and maybe there's not even a lot of employees, but to begin with, and they don't require a lot of investment, but can start up and $200,000 doesn't get you a whole lot of equipment or anything else, but lowering the threshold so that you can, because you want to encourage those type of jobs and those type of investments in the community. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Mr. Cook?
Well, I will. Y'all hammered this out. I mean, y'all been working on this 4, 5, 6 months now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So everybody was satisfied with the changes that that were made, the entire board was
Yes,
satisfied?
sir, they were.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, in going through this version of it that you have, back in the abatement authorized section 3, if you look at that, we have a retail facility done twice as a capital projects for that. Okay? No, our board is recommending this to the city, as a change to the policy.
Okay. But other questions for Mr. Cook?
If things stay the same.
In the future, do y'all plan on dealing with as I understand it, y'all are planning on making some adjustments to the facade program?
Yes, sir, we are. We're looking at that.
When do you think that we might be seeing that?
I would say probably we're gonna discuss this at the next board meeting also. I would expect that you'd see something within the next 2 months, change to the facade.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion related to the incentive policy.
Mayor, I'll move we approve the economic development incentive policy in application as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. McClendon to the city improve the incentive policy as recommended by CETA. Any discussion? Not proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, Mr. Cook, we're gonna defer to the executive session, and so I'm gonna move at this time to the consent agenda. And Mr. Barnes, you wanted to mention item 3 before we consider a motion on that, on the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I wanted to explain why item number 3, the 2017 racial profiling report, is on consent agenda. We asked Dr. Alex Del Carmen, who is our consultant for the racial profiling report, to make a report to council. He was unable to do so tonight. He is at another city presenting their racial profiling case, and they were in line before we were. He will be here for the March 6th meeting. However, statutorily, we have to present this to council at the February meeting. Therefore, we are asking not for the racial profiling report to be approved, but simply to be received by the council.
Okay? And with that explanation, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
A motion by Mr. McClinton, seconded by Mr. Nix to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those, any discussion? If not, no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, that motion carries unanimously. Comments by city administrators. So Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you'll recall, last month I started with an update on our strategic plan, and I said I would take each section for the next several months. The first part of our strategic plan deals with infrastructure. I wanted to update you to let you know that our asset management plan is progressing. We have a meeting with the students at UTA who are doing the program. I believe actually it's the week I'm gone. I don't know the exact date. I think it's like the 21st or something. So the asset management plan and CIP are progressing. The street program, we have bid some of the bids. I think we've got one bid left. The program will start most likely sometime in March. For the seal coating, it has to be a temperature, I believe it's of 50 degrees and rising, or average overnight temperature of 50 degrees or more. Eastside Sewer, we continue to wait for a response from the Texas Water Development Board. Our contacts at Texas Water Development Board have told us that they anticipate the board having our commitment on their agenda. I believe it's March 21st. It's at their March meeting. I believe it's March 21st. The master plan for utilities, we are completing the request for proposals, and we expect them to be out very shortly, and we'll begin getting those bids in, and we'll be proceeding on those and developing the utility condition index. The last day to file for a place on the council ballot is February the 16th. On February the 13th, we're going to have a council meeting to discuss performance measures. We'll probably go ahead and discuss the personnel policy manual and an employee recognition program. The reason is we feel like those are all three interrelated and probably best discussed at the same time. And city offices will be closed Monday, February the 19th for President's Day.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Barnes?
I just want to, and you're looking at where we're going to be seal coating, et cetera, on that plan, you know, we had some citizens that asked about the type of coating for their streets. Did we take that into consideration when we came with that plan?
I think so.
We had some, came up here and had talked about the, you know, skateboarding, et cetera, in their neighborhood, so I want to make sure that we.
Yes, sir. I don't think his street was on the list for this year.
We address that.
That's correct.
When you say don't address that, you mean, just to clarify, or it's not being considered right now?
No, sir, it's not on the plan for this year.
All right.
And I think I'll be in Austin that day. Would you tell me what day the board's meeting? I might go by and sit to their board meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Location, address, that sort of thing.
Will do.
Any other questions for Mr. Barnes? All right, if not, comments by council members, Mr. McClinton?
Mr. Mayor, I wanna give some kudos out to the Ministerial Alliance. Pastor Didforth is here with us tonight. The Ministerial Alliance of Stephenville, Texas provides our invocation before all of our council meetings. And also from time to time, they call a special meeting where this group of pastors gets together and invites community leaders, county leaders, into a room, and they just sit for 30 or 40 minutes and just pray for our community. And they pray for our schools and our first responders and the leadership of the city and the administration of the city. And you don't get that everywhere you live. I think it's just another example of why Stephenville, Texas is a great place to live, work, and to raise a family. So thanks to you guys.
All right, thank you. Ms.
I
Russell?
don't have any comments tonight.
Mr. Sveen? Mr. Middleton?
I don't know.
Mr. Harrison?
Nothing.
Mr. Nix? Ms.
We're
Zachary?
a bunch of talkers
Okay.
tonight.
Oh, well, I'm gonna say one thing. I wanna thank the first responders in this community. Our police department, our fire department, our paramedics. We are very blessed to have a professional force. I also wanna thank their families who see them off every morning, and they don't know if they'll see them when they come back. And that's a life that you've got to live before you know the significant support that's provided from the family for that. But I think our police department is one of the reasons why we celebrate this community. I think our fire department is the best in the state of Texas. And we've got a lot to be proud of with our first responders and the professionalism that they provide to this community. The training that they go through and the regiment that they go through is very, very important to their success, but it boils down to real people and people that are willing to accept it as a profession and a calling. And I just want to personally thank all of you for what you do for this community. So. And with that, I will call us into executive session in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, sections 551072 deliberations regarding real property, and sections 551074 personnel matters.